Remember Voldemort from Harry Potter? At first, nobody called him by his name. They were scared and unsure. They called him you-know-who, or he who must not be named. But towards the end of the books, that changed. They started saying Voldemort's name. People realized you can't hide from your fear. You must confront it. Perhaps Western countries should read that chapter because they can't decide what to call China. Competitor? Rival? Enemy? It depends on who you ask at what time. And this ambiguity applies to their policy as well. They can't decide what to do with China. Decouple, diversify, or as the US is now saying, de-risk. Listen in to the White House National Security Advisor.
We are for de-risking and diversifying, not decoupling. We'll keep investing in our own capacities and in secure, resilient supply chains. We'll keep pushing for a level playing field for our workers and companies and defending against abuses.
To be clear, it's not a new term. The European Union has previously talked about de-risking. So have businesses in the West. But the question is, what does it mean? How do you de-risk from China? This was Jake Sullivan's explanation.
Our export controls will remain narrowly focused on technology that could tilt the military balance. We're simply ensuring that U.S. and allied technology is not used against us. We are not cutting off trade.
In case you missed that, the US will not cut off trade with China. Instead, it will focus on strategic technology, things that could have military functions or things that could be used against Western allies. I can give you an example from last year. The US decided to suspend deliveries of F-35 jets. Why? Because the aircraft had Chinese parts inside. Another example could be Huawei. The company has been banned in multiple Western nations. The fear is they snoop for Beijing. These are all examples of de-risking. But why has Washington decided on this policy? And more importantly, what happened to decoupling? The simple answer is money. China-US trade is worth more than $600 billion. This includes a diverse basket of goods like garments made in Xinjiang and precious metals from Tibet. Some of these goods have been sanctioned by the US, but not all of them. And from the looks of it, Washington wants to keep it that way. They don't want to decouple from China. They want to pick and choose what to buy and sell. I'm not saying this is the wrong policy. I'm saying it's a confused policy. On one hand, you are engaged in a new Cold War with the Chinese. On the other hand, you're trying to preserve economic ties with them. Can enemies really trade with each other? That question brings us to the point of clarity, or rather the lack of it. Earlier this month, French President Emmanuel Macron visited China. He said Europe simply cannot be America's vassal. He wanted to chart a different relationship with Beijing. Same with Germany. Chancellor Olaf Scholz is vigorously pushing for a port deal with China. The deal is for one terminal of the Hamburg port. China wants to buy a 25% stake in it. Scholz's own allies are opposed to the deal, but the Chancellor is eager to clear it. At the same time, Germany is looking to curb the export of chip chemicals to China. Do you see the problem here? You're letting China invest in your port, but you're not selling chip chemicals to them. Is this not picking and choosing? Is this not confusion? The fact is, there is a clear political conflict between the West and China. And there is no denying that. But the West wants to insulate their economy from the conflict. Hence, de-risk and not decouple. The problem is, China knows this. They've inserted themselves into key global supply chains, which means two can play at this game. If the West can partially squeeze China, China can return the favor. So what's the way out? Well, Jake Sullivan mentioned that too. Diversification, he said, taking supply chains out of China and somewhere safe. But to do that, you need to have clarity. All this de-risk talk is nothing but confusion. It's only giving China more time to prepare for any financial assault.